your one of your hosts, Ramona Luti, and of course Martina Johnson. Um, Thank you for tuning in. Remember, we are also broadcasting live on Facebook. That's on edu.fm. Sorry. We're streaming on edu.fm. And we're also broadcasting live on Facebook, which is EduFM. That is EDYOU FM on Facebook. You can also message us with your comments and questions on 600-8343. That's 600-8343 on WhatsApp. And remember, our reach is 99.9.
Hold on. Catch your bearings. All right, you can tune into Edu FM on radio, 99.7 FM in Georgetown and 89.9 FM in Ituni, Maruka, and Port Kaituma, and 98.9 in New Amsterdam, as well as 99.9 everywhere else. So she's right when she started with 99.9.
It's all the nines.
It's all the nines, right? All right, so stay tuned to the Women Empowerment Program. We've got our first guest here. As she introduced me, you know me, Martina Johnson, the co-host. We're going to give you some music, set the mood, and then hit it with our guest right after this.
You've been giving life, every teardrop, every smile. Nature's more than butterflies. Carry the world 1,000 times, and I'm hopeful that someday you'll see what I more than worthy of molding a nation. Take off your crown on most days, but there's a halo there and it's gonna stay, it'll stay. For everything depends on you, woman. You're more than worthy of molding a nation, and you're more than worthy. I wanna be shining your crown. Do you know you're more than worthy? You're more than beautiful, you're more than powerful.
I am unstoppable.
I am confident.
I am limitless.
I am a strong woman. Be proud of you. Be bold. Be brave.
You are enough.
You are valuable.
You are capable.
You are phenomenal. Be you.
You are fabulous.
You are dynamic.
We are worthy.
More than worthy of molding a nation. I wanna be shining your crown. More than worthy.
Martina will introduce our first guest, which I think you all will find. I feel this will be an engaging session. I was looking forward to this. So Martina, go ahead.
I was looking forward to it for quite a while, and I remember when we were talking before we introduced the guest. I remember when we were first talking about it, we said this was last year, that there's so much that this ministry has to share that our program, where we normally have 2 segments, would not be able to accommodate it because you'd only get half an hour. So now we have a 2-hour program and you're getting a full hour. So
with the minister at that.
Yes, with the minister at that. So who do we have in studio? We have the Minister of Human Services and Social Security, none other than Miss
Dr.
Doctor, sorry, Vindhya Prasad, and we'd like to welcome you to the Women Empowerment Program. It's our last show for February, and the first and the last. You know, they always say we save the best for last. Well, yes, we save the best for last for this month, and we're happy that you can join us. I don't think I need to give you any other introduction other than the role that you play, but the rest of it and all the work that you do will come out during our discussions tonight. And I know that every Guyanese listening or every listener to our program would have some idea. I have no hesitation when I say every person listening would have an idea of the work that you've been doing, because you've been on the trail. It's like a campaign trail nonstop, all the work in the media and everything. So welcome to our program, and thank you for coming here to join us this evening.
Good evening, everyone listening, and to all of you. When we speak of women's empowerment, there are 3 women sitting in front of me, one on the console, one DJing, and the other joining in the introduction. So I think it's a great way to begin this evening's program. I'm very happy to be here with all 3 of you, and thank you for inviting me on the program ahead of International Women's Day on the 8th of March.
Thank you for being here.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because tonight is our first night with a female DJ.
So I'm lucky.
Ashwini Saran. We're breaking barriers, and we're making history here, because we've got so much going on with all women.
Empowering women by being empowered women.
That's
here.
right.
Yes, ahead of International Women's Day. Yes. All right. So let us talk about your roles and the work that you do. And we hit it off right away with, how do you envision the role of women in society in terms of their contributions to the social and economic development of Guyana?
Women have always been multidimensional, and I think their intervention in the economic roles perhaps might have been underemphasized in the past, but they've been very relevant, and we only have to look back at the many, many women who would have single-handedly raised families and been introduced into the business environment in a very informal way. And then came the time when more and more women started to enter the educational arena, develop themselves professionally and academically, and thereafter they would have occupied positions nationally, regionally, and locally. And I feel that that kind of movement of our women could easily be justified by the statistics. For example, if we look at the University of Guyana, we have seen for more than a decade that women have easily surpassed their male counterparts in completing tertiary education. The same could be said of the school system. And then we are looking at the role women play in addition to their economic intervention in a social way, where outside of earning and trying to be financially independent, they're making so many contributions in other arenas. And then also they're heavily focused on their family structure, family life, and are decision makers in our country at the highest level. So I think the time of movement of women to this point in 2023, we've seen a lot of good things, and it has been lovely to see it captured in the World Economic Forum Index, which is the looking at the gender gap, the Global Gender Gap Index. And this is an index that has been done in the last few years, and Guyana would have featured for sure in the last 2 years. And what was significant about last year is we moved up in a ranking from 53 to 35. That's 18 spots upward. And women would have been assessed in education, their economic position, their ability to contribute to the labor force, politics, just to name a few areas. So it means whatever we're doing right now, we're doing the right thing.
So, what measures are your ministry taking to ensure gender equality and empower women in these various areas, for example, education, employment, entrepreneurship?
One of the most successful programs, I would say, coming out of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security is the WIN program. I think if you ask any woman across Guyana, they will know about WIN. And the acronym was selected because I truly believe that women need to understand how important it is to win for themselves. But that acronym stands for very important things that we do, and we encourage women, W, innovation. We're looking at the way in which they can creatively deliver for themselves economic generating ideas, which could lead to them becoming financially independent. We are investing in them because all the programming through WIN is absolutely free to any woman out there. And they're also investing their time, committing to winning. And the last letter, networking, is so crucial when someone wants to move from that stage of training to getting their business, their skill, their talent, and themselves out there, and also looking too at how they can form successful consortiums to not only take the trek alone, but to group up with other women to engage in business ideas. And the beauty of the WIN program, when conceptualizing it, I looked at training programs. They abound. They have always been there for women. But what was the one thing that prevented more women from accessing them? The requirement. So we removed every requirement. All you have to do now is show up. Your age is not a barrier. Your academic background is not a barrier. Where you live is not a barrier, because this is a hybrid model program where we're training women in person and virtually. And then I also looked at, what are we offering these women? Do we just want to give them a certificate? That too has always been out there. So we teamed up with institutions that give them certificates that had weight. UE-based certificates coming out of the local branch here, Reutech, and also looking at the UK, the ABMA program through the School of the Nations. And so that was our first foray into training women and giving them a certificate that can open the door to them starting business, whether it was micro enterprise or small business, to them pursuing more in the academia, or to them accessing employment. Because not only did we give them the certificate, but I also was in discussion with the Private Sector Commission, with my colleagues in the public sector, and also GCCI, to ensure that when they got trained, there was the possibility of employment. And then came Coursera. And so we happily signed on. Why? Because we were able to do more for less. And so what started out in the infancy in 2020, when I ran the pilot, and we only managed to do about 200 women within that structure, ended up with us in 2021 training over 2,000 women. Last year, 4,170. Now we have a target that's easily achievable of 6,000. The Coursera injection into the WIN program allowed us to be able to create stackable courses to give a level 1, level 2 certification from some of the foremost universities in the world. It also gives us the ability, which we will seize later on in the year, to do something called creative authorship, where we can conceptualize, we can design the programs, and we can offer them through Coursera. And the beauty about all of this is that it's free. So when you're saying equality, right away, it speaks to the heart of equality, equal access to opportunity. And then moving women from accessing training the way it has been done, where all 10 regions would have benefited so far, what next? Well, the barriers, we looked at the barriers: business registration, compliance, funding. And so they started a successful partnership with the World Food Program. And while they wanted to just do cash grants, I said, no, we need to make sure that these cash grants were being used for the purpose intended. So from last year to this year, we gave cash stimulus grants to 3,000 women across all regions last year. And this week, we complete 225 women receiving cash grants with a difference. They would have had to develop a business plan, which meant they not only took the training from the WIN program, but for the complementary program called WIN in Business. We offer WIN in Business clinics to anybody who would like to start their own business. Within that clinic, they have access to the banks, to GRA, to NIS, to all these entities right at their fingertips or their doorstep, so that right away, with this last program, they were all able to register their businesses. It required taking $5,000 from the cash that was given to them. But we watched them do it, because I said, we're not just going to leave you untended where you might be very tempted to use this money for something else. The first tranche of the money has to go towards an appliance or something tangible towards business. Then you get the last bit. And then through the first female-centric business incubator, which was launched in 2021, Any woman, including any one of these, through WIN or otherwise, could access our services of quality control, marketing, how to find markets, and also looking at packaging, whatever help you need. We've partnered with a number of other agencies and persons. We have partnered with the Women's Chamber of Commerce. They are also doing some training and will offer mentorship. And we have literally spread our wings in such a direction that even the Her Venture program that has been started by the Sherry Blair Foundation in Guyana, we have partnered in such a way that they were in all of our classrooms taking their numbers up on in a panel discussion with Mrs. Sherry Blair. I said this was what we call a successful partnership, because we didn't only stop at what we could have offered. We gave women the opportunity to use digital technology, which placed resources at their fingertips. In fact, after that panel discussion, I'm invited to speak at another conference on the Guyana model, because that's pivotal to their conversation. Unfortunately, I will not be able to go there, but the discussion will revolve around what Guyana has done with WIN. And I think our country should feel a sense of satisfaction, because if we speak of gender equality, that might have remained a conversation piece, or it might have remained an elusive thing, but now it's reality.
It might have just been a catchphrase, you know?
Yeah.
But I like when you talk, let me just step back for a minute here. I like where you said that you've provided training and you've provided them the opportunity to share a business plan, an idea, and they get support in developing this plan and resources, etc. But tying it into things that they must do. So every step has another level where, okay, to get this, you got to do this. To get this, you got to do this. So I like that you have a monitoring and evaluation, or like a reward system that keeps them going. But you also said that you're giving them support after. So once they register, you're now going to teach them to market and how to find business.
So the Guyana Women's Leadership Institute is now a hub.
This is in Cove and John.
This is in Cove and John. I'm glad that you know this, because a lot of people did not know that building existed. Now that building has been modernized. It has a fully functional computer lab. It has training spaces. We are adding another training space to that, indoor and outdoor training spaces. We have a state-of-the-art culinary center, which will add to the complement of courses that we are now offering. And we have gone one step further. We have something called the WIN app. And on that single app, 750 women-owned businesses would have flourished, because now they have one advertising platform. We're in discussion with GT&T to utilize MMG so that those women on that platform can now have a really good opportunity to offer their services, and they can have financial benefits from that. So it's a holistic model, and I think it's one that can only grow. I've been speaking to my counterpart in agriculture, Minister Zulfikar Mustafa, and we're looking at introducing 2 agricultural areas under WIN, and you will hear about that soon. It's in the embryonic stage, but the idea is to diversify what we are offering. And it's not the conventional program where we stick to only a certain type or number of courses. We look at the niche markets. So it's a dynamic type of program. For example, we taught professional courses, child care, elder care, patient care. This will form the basis of several things. One, a home-based referral system, again working with another colleague of mine who I'll put this idea to Minister of Health, so that if people leave the hospital, now they have access to people who are trained to care for patients. And I did say in Parliament this year that we are going to be launching day and night care and early childhood centers. Yes. This is a brand new concept in the world, because it's never been blended like that. You might have one or the other, or 2 of 3. So this concept now is going to be a lot easier to implement, because the people have already been trained, hundreds of people across all the regions. So we're piloting maybe 2 of those. And so women can now have the opportunity to learn from these models and do the thing that I want them to do, start their own. You know, I tell women, stop always being in this space where you think you have to work for someone else.
Yes,
Start thinking about how you can work for yourself. And now you don't have to search for the way in which you can do it. We're giving it to you, and it's all
Everything.
free. It
Yes.
costs you nothing.
And in this way, it's something that Martina and I always talk about. You're not just giving them a fish, you're teaching them to fish.
I believe in that.
Yes, you're teaching them to fish. And just in case you guys didn't know, the WIN program itself, some of the courses that are covered are, as Minister mentioned, childcare, care for the elderly, graphics design, home management, television and video production, garment construction, and some new courses that were recently added for 2023, food tourism, social media marketing, design, decor and events management, light and sound engineering for events and theater, entrepreneurship, project management, leadership, advocacy and public speaking, addiction recovery, and drug rehabilitation. And these courses all have a duration of 1 to 4 weeks. I mean, and it's free. You're getting certified. This is an opportunity that everyone should take advantage of. And I see here for 2023, today is actually the registration.
Registration closes today, so you
Yeah.
still have until midnight to register.
So let me just let out something here. While
Let them know how they can register.
registration should close, I have asked GWLI to not exclude people once the classrooms are not filled, because when people register, everybody wants to know if they got into the class tomorrow. But we
Yes.
have had in 1 week 7,000 applicants. That's the level that we have been going to. So they have to process all those applications. And we try to tell people, stick to one class and finish that class, because then you have several levels to
Yes,
complete
yes.
all of this. And then we also have the difficulty with some people. You call them back, they don't answer their phone, or they might not have given you a correct number. So I don't want anyone to miss a spot in the classroom. So while officially it's closed, keep going on the site and registering, because you never know. There might be a space in a classroom and you just might be the lucky one to get there.
So how and where do you register? You go to the ministry's Facebook page. That is the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. And that page is Human Services GY. So you go www.facebook. That's 3 W's, right? .facebook.com/Human Services GY. And what are the requirements? Just have a valid telephone number, your national ID card, or your passport. And for online courses, you must have a laptop with a camera and stable internet connection. But then the Women's Leadership Institute also has a lab that would offer assistance in instances for individuals who may not have it. And there are other initiatives I see that the government is giving laptops in different communities. So there are many things that are happening. So do not leave yourself out. Apply, and whatever challenges you may have that you think may not or may exclude you from the program, listen, just bring it to the fore. And you don't know who would help and when you get that help. So apply.
So just to add to what you said, and I'm glad you said all that you said, because it starts with you wanting to do something to elevate yourself and empower yourself.
She's taking our words.
So I just want to tell people, you might not be able to do it for this month, but there's an entire year. So WIN will be going for the entire year. So if there's something that's preventing you from registering now, don't just say, well, that's the end of me. Keep checking the page and keep looking for openings, because we really, look, when I see the We Lift program that we held the first year, and we saw 75 women own businesses. I thought that was a lot, but the next year we could have only accommodated 175. There were a lot more women who want, but we didn't have the space for it. Oversubscribed. So it just meant that women were seizing the opportunity and doing a lot of things with it. And we saw a lot of success stories. There's a young woman who was never in business. She left. I got to the exercise a bit late on day, so I didn't see everyone. She left me her product that she packaged wonderfully, and now she's in Barbados with the whole agro-processing thing. And I said, power to you.
There's an agro-processing event happening in Barbados right now.
Correct. And here is one of our students who would have done WIN, gone to GMC. So she used the network of what government would have been offering, and there she is. And that's just one. Yes, that's just one. I remember after 2020 distinctly, 2 women won tenders, small government tenders. And I thought, this is big because they were just homemakers and they just jumped into whatever was out there. They started their business and boom, they got it.
So this is the introduction to Guyana for the Agro Fest.
From Radio Agro Fest, this is Georgetown calling. Meet some of the members of a delegation from Guyana's agricultural community, our special guests at Agro Fest, as Barbados deepens ties with our CARICOM neighbor called the Breadbasket of the Caribbean. Georgetown calling from Radio Agro Fest.
Yeah, that's the intro that they did for Guyana, because I got it from Barbados and they're like, read this now. And we wanted something hype for Guyana, and that's how I learned about it. And then I learned that you've got so many female entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs going, and I thought this is really good. So if you get the agro aspect of the project for WIN expanded, look at the opportunities. It's not just for local.
But it's not what you think, but you will see what we want to do a bit later.
I'm excited. I've got many female friends in agriculture, and I hope that...
Yeah, but the Ministry of Agriculture is doing this huge investment in agro-processing. I know in Region 2 they have set up something and a few other regions. And I think if women follow all that the government of Guyana is doing, it's simple. Connect the dots. Start with WIN. Then you connect the dots to the other places that will lead you where you want to go, because government has invested in the Small Business Bureau. In the national budget, over $300 million would have gone there. And that's another funding source.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we try to let women know when they come into our program. So we do something called business literacy, with the outcome being a feasible business plan. So that when you get to the point of going either Small Business Bureau, maybe you might want to go to IPED or the banks, or there is something in your hand. So you're not going blind, and you're very equipped with what you need to have for all of that.
Yeah, when I was starting my business, I had a challenge of information, where to go, what to get it, and I was out there fishing, not knowing who to go to, and going to everybody. And it's good now that you have a system in place where everything is in one place. It makes it easier, it's less frustrating, and you get it right. You don't have the trial and error aspect, which I had, wondering, how do you register to pay this? What about your staff? What about VAT? Do you register to pay VAT? When do you register to pay VAT? Do you need a full business plan? Like all these things I had to navigate on my own. And I'm proud to know that there is an initiative for women to help us along this journey. So we're going to take a break here in studio and come back to you with much, much more information.
Before you take a break, I just want to add the last thing on WIN, because you probably will ask me a lot of other things.
Sure.
But the N in WIN requires networking. So I would like to encourage women like yourself or other women out there who are successes to work with us through the Women Business Incubator, so that you can be the inspiration. You can also mentor other women. And finally, women need to network with women. Even if you have gotten a skill out of WIN or somewhere else, look for the other women who have other things, come together as consortiums. A lot of women don't see the value in a consortium because they want to go alone. But if you have all these other people, all these other skills, and then you pool your resources, your business is likely to be more sustainable than trying to do it individually. And when something goes wrong, you collapse. Yeah. So that's what I want to say, because not a lot of women went that route. People tend to want to do it on their own. So just wanted to add that before we took that break.
I'm not going to tell you all about my consortium. We're going to take a break right now. Stay tuned to the Women Empowerment Program on 99.7 FM and all the other dials. Stay tuned.
Still having studio Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Dr. Vindhya Prasad. And we were just talking about the WIN program. So, Minister, just to get back into something you mentioned earlier. So, how do you think we can, you talked about the WIN program and we talked about the courses that they offer, for example, graphic design. And, graphic design is a male-dominated, initiative. So how do you think we can encourage more girls to pursue careers in traditionally male-dominated fields such as science, technology, engineering, and math?
Well, I think right away education has the STEM program. Ministry of Education, that is, also encourages robotics. In fact, Guyana has been very successful in sending multiple robotics teams. Yep. And I am, for the first time, taking 3 young women from Guyana to the UN who will be presenting for Guyana on that international forum on digital technology, because the theme for this year revolves around narrowing the gap for women and girls when it comes to digital technology. So I think we must be doing something right, because if I looked at the composition of many of those teams, they were predominantly female. In terms of the WIN program too, we stayed away from a lot of the conventional type of programs like graphic design. We put that in there and a few other areas, because I also felt that women should not limit themselves when it came to choosing what they wanted to do.
Agreed, yep.
And also this whole idea of earning equally came into play, because if you were in the same domain as your male counterpart, then your pay must be equal. And that is a big discussion that is going on in the entire world. I wouldn't go to unpaid care and all of that, because that's a whole other ball game. But when it comes to putting yourself out there to have equal access to opportunity, first you have to have the ability to compete on the level playing field. And that's what WIN and many of the other governmental programs are doing. Like the Board of Industrial Training right now is running quite a few programs like boat building, construction of homes, and the one I love, the heavy duty machinery. And just look at the people who are taking advantage of this. Many, many women. Just look in the hinterland. And recently, through WIN, with the collaboration of between us and GEA, we did something called solar voltaic training, which has great impact. And we did it in the hinterland, and we had quite a number. In fact, the entire class was comprised of women. And this is a new field, and they took the challenge, they completed the program, and they will be very integral to what the government is doing with cleaner, greener sources of energy. So that's the kind of thing that I believe is being encouraged by all the sectors in government. Low Carbon Development Strategy of 2030 focuses heavily on the injection of resources back into village economies. Many of those villages have women who are in a lot of newer areas, notably tourism. And I know there is another program that has a woman behind it, Miss Annette Arjun, where she's working with these young women and using drones to monitor the whole concept of erosion, the mangroves. So these are very new areas, and it creates a lot of excitement when the international community will hear about these things. And I will say that Guyana has never shied away from putting women in the forefront in a lot of these unconventional areas.
Well, it's good because I think it's what we say when people meet opportunity. We've always been interested in it, but the opportunity was not there, or even if the opportunity was not there, you didn't know it was there, or you weren't motivated because of all the other external factors and the stigma and all the noise, I call it, that distract you from it. So with the emphasis being put on it and saying, hey, come out, anybody, everybody, and then what I like is that on the social media pages of the Board of Industrial Training, of GEA and everybody, they are preaching and teaching and sharing the success stories. So when you see a success story, you're inspired, like, oh, really, she can do that?
Yeah.
Let me try it. And I think that's the way to go, because if the message was still being covered or hidden, not being told, then you can't inspire people. And I like that. So you shared a success story of one woman who's been positively impacted and she is at the agro-processing event in Barbados right now. Any other stories that
There's
you know
so
of?
many. And I say there's so many because women would stop me on the road and say, I just want to give you this. And when I look at it, it's a business card. And they say, this is my business. I just want to give you a hug for this because I wasn't doing this 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So the success stories are numerous. They're diverse because they're in so many different things. When I was in Region 10, just about a week ago, we were doing the WFP program. So I have a habit of when I'm handled, so what are you going to do? So I said, one thing I want to tell all of you, don't do the same thing. Make sure that if you're in the same area, all of you, everybody wanted to go into poultry. So I say, who's going to buy this from you now? So put some value added things on to what you're doing and that kind of thing. And one lady said, what I want to do in Region 10? I said, let me hear it. She said, I'm going to open a whole restaurant where I customize my food and customize it that I'm not only offering Guyanese food, but food from the world. I said, well, power to you. And she had this whole vision. So I think this whole momentum is really encouraging women not to limit themselves, to think outside the box and to bring along with them their families and in many cases their communities. In fact, food security is something that the president is very big on, and the Ministry of Agriculture is on a Shade House program where lots of women are involved. And if we are to ensure that we have sustainable food security or food security that is something that we can rely on, I think everyone has to jump in. So these are the kinds of programs that galvanize women who are at home. Whether it's a shade house, whether it's hydroponics, they are utilizing whatever they have in their immediate vicinity to start into the areas where they can either be secure because they're providing for themselves or financially independent. My catch line to them is moving you from a state of dependence to independence. And I say to them, you can do it. You can do it. Others have done it, and one or two times I've had the opportunity to listen to women speak of their struggles. And while we didn't say this in this discussion before, a lot of the focus is also placed on women who are in very abusive situations. We had 3 training programs where entire classes were comprised of women who were in abusive and violent relationships. And that also is giving them the kind of confidence to step out of those kinds of situations. And while I'm saying women, 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 you might be surprised they have quite a few men in the classrooms. In fact, in the last distribution we did, there was a young man and all the guys were laughing. I said, why are you laughing at him? They said, let him pull his mask down so you can see who he is. He actually has a background in the police. And I said, well, that's good. Why are you laughing at him? Because he might bring his wife the next time, So
I'm glad that you brought that up, because you see a lot of times when we're having conversations about issues related to women, sometimes we forget that men are part of the conversation too, in that they can share the message, or they're part of the problem, or they are a part of the solution. That brings us to our next question as well, because we wanted to talk about the issue of gender-based violence. Before we talk about it, however, let me just give you some information. On Thursday, March 2nd, we are going to be, not we.
You can come, it's okay.
The Ministry of Human Services and Social Security is having an outreach at the RDC compound, First Avenue, Bartica, on March 2nd. That's on Thursday, from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And this is a legal pro bono, meaning free, right? You don't come with any money, outreach. And they're giving you free legal advice on the issue of domestic violence and domestic violence cases. It's called the Legal Pro Bono 500 Initiative. And it will give you all the information you need with regards to domestic violence, the 914 number, reporting cases of gender-based violence, survivor advocates, where they'll be providing you with information on crisis counseling, court support, and other services. There's also the SAFE voucher, which is $15,000 being given to individuals. In that case, when you're getting out of your situation, you need a bit of a support. And that SAFE voucher goes to food hamper.
Whatever they want.
Whatever you need at that specific
time.
supermarket that might be supporting it. And there's also the survivor kit and the shelter or safe homes. So they'll tell you how to access all these things. So come out if you're in Bartica, or you could get to Bartica on the 2nd of March. 8:30 to 11 a.m. for free advice on all issues relating to domestic violence and gender-based violence. All right. Now to our question. How do you plan to address, so you know there's a lot of work going on. What sort of work is happening and is planned for the issue of gender-based violence or domestic violence? And we say gender-based violence because it's not just women we're talking about here.
Everyone.
We're talking about everyone, to address the safety and well-being of individuals in their homes, their communities, in school.
So I'm glad you asked me about this, because just as WIN is a flagship program, this is another flagship program. Guyana signed on to the Spotlight Initiative in October 2020. We signed on months after every other country in the region to the Spotlight Initiative, which is funded by the European Union and implemented by United Nations and their various sub-agencies. From then to now, Guyana is now leading every other country through the Spotlight Initiative. The Spotlight Initiative is focused on violence against women and girls, but we have gone beyond what was envisaged for this program and taken national ownership, piloting our own programs, partnering with the agencies within that Spotlight complement, and also starting a number of the programs that have really, really helped women. So violence has been embedded globally. Violence in our own country is something that we've all grown up seeing, reading about, and knowing someone who would have experienced it. I've not been living with my head in the sand thinking that it's a quick fix to violence. They have so many triggers and so many dimensions to violence. And of course, the solutions have to be multifaceted. So from that whole thought was, how can we create a comprehensive model that deals with every conceivable area that must be harnessed to tackle that big thing? So one of the things I noticed was that people did not want to report violence. 914 was born. 914, 24-hour hotline that is toll-free, that brings together two giants, GT&T and Digicel, bringing them together. So we are now offering, 2 years old, offering people the opportunity to make a call to report violence. They can do this for themselves, or they can do this anonymously for someone else. We would have seen in the early days, maybe just a few hundred. Last year, we had over 13,000 calls to that hotline. Now, 24 means that there's someone there at the end, but not only English-speaking people, we also have Spanish speakers, so that we can cater for those who speak Spanish. And this facility is going to be expanded. Now, it's a very taxing thing for the operators, and I want to say on this forum how appreciative I am of the work that they do, because it's not only answering the phone. Sometimes it's answering the phone and making the difference in so many ways, because they actually call the police station if the police did not respond to the person or intervene, which brings me to another component of this entire referral pathway, the Cop Squad 2000 initiative. When I mentioned this, everybody thought, why are you going to do this? You're not going to do anything with this. And I said, no, we have to do this, because the important first interface would be the police station.
Yes.
They have to intervene, especially in the most horrific forms of violence that would have been perpetrated on someone. So we were able to train over 1,400 police officers. I was conservative in my figure. I said 2,000. And I remember meeting with the who is now the acting commissioner, and he said, no, I know you train my whole force. And I said, let me do 2,000. Let me get past it. Let's see how they work, reassess it, and then we can do the remainder of your force. Just a few days ago, we graduated 500 of those officers of all levels, from the most junior to the most senior. They are now pinned with a badge, identifying them as a Cop Squad officer. I was happy when he said there's something I really wanted to see happen. I've been saying, but this year it will happen. Those officers' faces and names will be on the walls of the police station, so that when someone goes in there, they actually know who to ask for, who would have been trained in professionally, efficiently, and sensitively, and according to the legislation, deal with domestic violence, gender-based violence issues. Now, these officers are from all regions. We still have another graduation to go, but the point is they're all armed with knowledge. Then I also thought, while all this is good, what about the person who is just terrified to do anything on their own? So the Survivor Advocates Program was born. We did not want to go down the road of victim. We wanted to start by empowering people and saying survivor. You've survived. So the Survivor Advocate provides a personalized experience of this ministry reacting to cases of violence. When a call is made to 914, you are attached to a survivor's advocate based on where you are. Now, we are expanding that complement of survivors advocates. Again, these are new programs. That advocate can take you from the point of reporting to the point of legal assistance. Now, I also thought, but, women have to leave without anything on their backs lots of times. Children. Let's get a voucher going. Well, my staff said, you know what? You think everybody is good, because I had this idea of putting those things very easily accessible, but they say people will abscond with what you want. So we do have the safe voucher, and I want to thank the Massey Supermarket for coming on board. $15,000 immediate expenses, and then came the survival kit, because you need the survival kit filled with the things that before you even have to go to a supermarket or store, they are the things that you need for you and your child. So there's that. Then comes, I need to get out, and I need to get out now. We have shelters. We're expanding the numbers of shelters we have across the country. And we also pay 3 months rent. If for some reason you can't get to a shelter, you don't want it, or we still do that. We do that through the difficult circumstances unit. So there's that kind of support. So a woman does not have to feel, or a man, men experience violence. They do not have to feel that, I'm going this alone. They're not. Then came the legal help, because you've done all of this. What next? Do you want
Reported, going to court.
So going to court, there is the legal aid, and the government does give a very healthy subvention and has been giving a subvention to legal aid, which is an NGO. And that subvention has been increased. And I know the Ministry of Legal Affairs is also working along with me in this and with Legal Aid to expand the kind of services. But while all of that is going to happen and will happen, I wanted the support to be now. So I met with the Guyana Bar Association. We had some discussions, and there came legal pro bono 500, because I was conservative in what I was asking for. 500 free cases every
because
year.
You want to start somewhere.
So now we actually have
you've
that.
Been able to do that.
We actually have that. And so while you might see the number being reflected as a small one, which will actually take someone into court, but all day free advice is being given, like those outreaches, so that we don't only sit in the office. The team does not sit in the office. They actually go out and they do all of these outreaches. But sometimes radio, television, social media does not reach every person. So we did start something called the Community Advocates Network. The acronym is CAN.
CAN, yes,
because
the CAN Network.
The CAN Network. I can, we can, you can. And so we've been systematically training people out there of all walks of life on how they can be first responders on the ground. We put out a register call where we said, those of you who want to be trained, we got 1,000 people. So that's where we started. It's growing. And that kind of network will tell people who are perpetrators out there, look, there are people out there with eyes who are looking at you and for you. And so that kind of robust system is what I would like to see across the country, which really brings home the point that I want to conclude the referral pathway with, in a kind of a way, that no one person can tackle this.
Yeah.
So now through Spotlight, there are pillars. One deals with data collection, because while we might be data rich, we also have to do data analysis to determine policy. One deals with legislation. So Guyana will soon have an updated piece of legislation moving from the current Domestic Violence Act that we have. One of the proposed names is family violence, because of the expansive coverage it gives. Used to be between two people, but now any kind of violence
would be encapsulated.
That's right.
Okay.
It also removes a lot of the discretion that police have. Now they are mandated to act. So there are lots of big things. we had a lot of intense discussions. The consultants feel I'm too aggressive on it. And I said, you know what? Laws can be reviewed. But at this point in time, maybe we need that level of aggression to deal with cases of domestic violence, because one death is way too much. And every time we're seeing each one of these things being more gruesome, more horrific, more callous, you have children left, it leaves so much trauma in its wake. So we have to do the things that we have to do. So between policy, legislation, then comes the strengthening of systems. And that's where we are looking at how we can do more effective case management, better case report writing, so that when you do need to go to court, that is solid, and how we can look at strengthening our access. So you will see GBV mobile systems. And there's an initiative that I'm very happy the Attorney General is partnering with me on, called the Hope and Justice Center. He would have done the impact justice system that falls on the legal affairs. I bring the hope, if I put it that way. But it's hope marrying justice. And so these one-stop centers will provide all the services someone experiencing domestic violence has to have. And that is where the Spotlight Initiative would have developed that whole operational system to just implement. Those will be starting construction this year, and we will see about 2 or 3 of them this year as the pilots, and then we will move outwards with those systems. So as you can see, and then you have the mobile systems, which means that not only static structures, stationary structures, we're dealing with teams of people we're going in with whatever is required, boats and whatever, to very far-flung areas to deal with it. Because oftentimes we tend to think of the coast, but these problems are everywhere. These issues are everywhere. But it comes back to everybody being an active participant in the solution towards it. So while I've shared all of this, it comes back to the unit, the family unit, not dismissing this. Lots of things happen behind closed doors. And people tend to think it's only one class of people, one race of people, one religion of people. No, not at all. It happens everywhere and in all circumstances and affects all people of all walks of life. So we have to be cognizant of the issue. We have to be supportive of the person who is experiencing it. And last thing I will say on this is a lot of young women, when they experience violence, you know what? I ask them, do you have family members? Why are you seeking shelter? 99% have family, but their family structure and their families do not support them. And that is something that needs to change because we cannot continue like this. Well, we do provide all of these things and that's well and good. Families need to start supporting people who experience violence and provide the safety and support that they really need at that critical time.
And it's because of that. It's because they have certain their culture is like that, their families are like that, that a lot of people don't want to speak up about gender-based violence. And I know personally growing up, I'm not just categorizing one race, but as an Indo-Guyanese, I grew up in an environment where it was taboo to talk about. You can't go telling your family members you get beat at home. You can't talk about those things. They tell you got to make it work. It's your fault. As a woman, it's your fault. I've grown up in situations like that. I've heard women being blamed so often, not so much men, but it does happen to men as well.
And it brings the point, when Antigua was doing the trilogy of legislation on domestic violence, child protection, and I think it was, I don't remember the other one. There were 3 sets of legislation, all in relation to that. And one of the things the research found, and I hope that there is research before we change and shape new legislation, because one of the things the research found was that many of the victims of domestic violence or the survivors of domestic violence had family, but not family support. And the reasons varied. For example, culture, no family support because they believed that according to this particular culture, a small group of people in that culture, women are subservient, women must please the man,
this is an Antigua,
etc. Then there's another section where they felt that every time she come and complain to us, she's always run back to the man. We're not getting between man and woman story. So that's your problem. It's not ours. And so the first time you get help is the last time you get help, as long as you go back to that man. So the door is now closed on you. What a lot of people don't know is that for women in domestic violence situations, it sometimes takes 7 attempts, in the majority of cases, before you get out.
Or not.
And in
or
our
you die.
situation, by the time you reach the third attempt, you die. So when you close the door on that person, you're closing the door on that person's life. So I'm hoping, and I'm sure, I'm saying I'm sure, that there will be some level of consultations and research so that you could gather the information to see what feeds into why family systems no longer support or withdraws the support in these instances.
So to answer a couple of your questions, with regard to the legislation, there was major consultation. We had consultation with all the agencies. We had public consultation, and we had consultation at the Arthur Chung Conference Center, where we invited civil society, and all of the recommendation and the feedback given, that has been provided to us. So we are working on the final draft of the bill because it was that important. We are also looking at the Sexual Offences Act, which is a 2010 act, and that's going to be looked at through the Attorney General's office. And it will go through the same process. And we're also looking at a harassment bill through Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. So those are some of the big bills coming out to deal with all the different aspects.
Just a quick question, child abuse anywhere in it?
Well, there is the Child Protection Act that exists. So that will be reviewed, but not right now.
Not in this context.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's that. But what we have added on would be the Hague Convention when it comes to adoption, when it comes to abduction, when it comes to management. So that is a whole different slant on that. We have signed on to that convention, and so it was ratified, and now we have to update our legislation. We've already gotten the Hague adoption bit of it passed, and we are now working to implement that so we can have the resumption of international adoptions. But going back to the family support, yes, there always will be differences culturally and how people are socialized to believe. But I think why women go back is because if you think of the person who abuses a woman, they usually manipulate that woman, and some people call it gaslighting. People call it all kinds of things. But that woman becomes conditioned in a certain way. And what usually happens after years of that, support is removed because the perpetrator will ostracize that woman from her support structure and will also make that woman feel less confident and also question her own ability to survive. And a lot of women would not have had financial support. They have children, and the first consideration usually, what about my children? And sometimes the threat of violence, should they report, is another consideration. That's why my concern has always been surrounding the protection order. Because lots of times that's done, but then she goes into proximity of the perpetrator again, and then she is either killed or she is horrifically mutilated or something like that. So while the law has all of these provisions, it comes back to the individual, and it also comes back to them being a little willing to step into a counseling arena, even accessing our support. But I think the family, the education of the family, I've never shied away from saying this. That's why I raised it here today. The family education is critical because blame should not be cast only in the direction of women. That's been a long-standing thing, irrespective of what the background is, because women are supposed to bear the brunt of this, and they're supposed to be the only ones dealing with the children. And then there's the whole issue of child support, which is a campaign I will be intensifying this year, because a lot of the time child support is not paid if a woman leaves and she feels compelled to go back for financial support. That's why WIN is so important in this whole equation, because we are not only empowering you, we're taking you to the point of financial independence. And then along with all of those things, you're getting shelter, you're getting this, you're getting that. And I think it will take some time before that registers, because there have been so many years where all of these things were not there. And you also see that conditioning of daughters who look at their mothers going back, and who look at their mothers settling for things, and who look at the choices their mothers and grandmothers would have made.
And they begin to think that's
normal.
They
begin to think that's normal.
So they're
socialized
think it's normal
that way.
to be fed fish.
Exactly.
Yes.
Not to fish.
So
on their
it's
own.
really a shift of sort in so many different directions.
So
Indeed.
you talked about many initiatives and measures that have been put in place to provide support for not just women but men. However, what measures are being taken to ensure that your sensitization campaigns are culturally appropriate and sensitive to the needs of the different communities? Because
And
as you
inclusive of
mentioned-
men too.
Yeah, and because you mentioned, this is irrespective of backgrounds, and we have varying backgrounds. So what is happening?
So we are looking, we have trained the religious community because religion is a big thing in Guyana. It's a very impactful community, and it's a community that has a lot of persons who we consider their own captive audience. So we have started through this ministry the Support and Heal Network. This is comprised of over 32 religious entities and umbrella bodies, and they have all been trained in as to how to train. They have had a certificate training session
So
on
they're
that.
trained
They're
trainers.
trainers. So they're trainers. Then they have been equipped with the knowledge and all these different things. And this year, their mandate now is to go out back to their own community. So that in its way is being done in a very sensitive way. So whichever faith they're in, this is the information, because the information is not disseminated by us with a bias in any which way. It's information. Then we've also started working with the Tushaus. They have the National Tushau Council. And going into the communities, we also try as much as possible to work with the Tushaus, with the councils, with the Gender Affairs Committee of the region. So it is taking all of the elements that comprise a region and making sure that we are very aware of the peculiarities of a community. But it's also understanding that some communities, because of these peculiarities, would have never reported. And what we're actually seeing from the manner in which we are going in is that there are more cases that are actually coming out, more people that are actually speaking to us. We've also looked at translation into dialects, into native language, into Spanish, not only for gender-based violence, but other things. And we've started a campaign called Shared Responsibilities. This was started in 2021, and then we started to amplify the way in which we engage men. In fact, the theme is called engagement, with men being in caps. So we interface with men virtually first, because I had this idea of a virtual men's hangout. This was in the height of COVID. We went through this for 6 months, and we gathered data from that. And from that data, then came all of these things, the shared responsibility campaign, where men understood that in their homes, they have to be present, and they actually have to do the simplest of things, combing their daughter's hair, making a meal, things that they thought would not have been in their purview.
It's for women.
Yes. So that whole awareness is out there. We have started a number of men's groups in most of the regions, and these men's groups are now exposed to all this knowledge, all this information. I was invited. I never forgot this. There was a men's group in a region, and they had this event, and they said I'd be the only female invited. I got very nervous, and they said it was a black tie thing and whatnot. Anyway, I went, and it was interesting they did everything from singing, dancing, cooking, the full works. They were out there, I took Miss Lagan with me for security in numbers. But just because it was, she's from Gender Affairs, so, this is her field too. But what impressed me was, after they were doing all this, I started speaking. I said, y'all are really quiet. Y'all don't have any problems. How you feel about women's empowerment? The floodgates open. It's always about empowerment of women. What about us? And in that instant, it was very enlightening. And then we were able to go to the men's conferences. The Prime Minister was our featured speaker at that one. And we had so many men present and give their own experiences and how they were successful and what their challenges are. We got to hear from the single fathers. So it was a very good session. And then we had some cooking sessions for men. And so this is the kind of way we continue to engage men. It is a little different from women, because men will not naturally seek out support or will not naturally gravitate to a lot of these things. So it's meeting them on their own ground. This year, we will be starting a campaign where we are working with bartenders, coaches, taxi drivers, barbers, all of the persons who offer services who are in the vicinity of men. And we are going to be training them in a lot of these things. So the conversation in their own domain could center around those things, and those persons will be trained also to intervene in situations that, just as a woman speaks in a salon, a man might speak in a barbershop.
Yes.
I remember the first time I said men bottle up their feelings and don't like to speak. The men were very upset with me. But I have seen it.
They open up where they're comfortable.
Where they're comfortable.
Yes.
And I've always had over the years, a lot of my friends who are male, they've always felt comfortable sharing with me. So I got that from them. They have to feel very sure that what they're saying to you, they're not going to be judged, and you can actually help them, whether it's counseling or whatever it is, So these are some of the initiatives that we're doing, and these are some of the things that will be very much amplified over the year. We're also going to be doing 2 other programs through Spotlight and through the UN agencies, and this is the Partnership in Peace program, or the Batterers program. That's not my name, but I will probably try to change that a little bit, where we are working with offenders and perpetrators of violence. So we're doing prevention, intervention, and then follow through with that program. And the other one is called the Foundations program, which focuses on young people 13 to 25. That one will be piloted in a few regions already identified through Spotlight, to focus on healthy behavioral patterns to prevent violence, focusing on that age range.
Excellent. Well, listen, we need 3 hours for you. First we were saying, when we had our 1-hour program,
we were sure that wouldn't be enough. We were sure.
Pack it in, but there's a lot, and we do hope that we can have more conversations like this, because there's never enough time to discuss all the issues affecting gender and for education purposes. And I told people when I was telling them who we're going to have on the program today, this is an information sharing session. And so you'd get the privilege to speak and share that information. It's not about us here, but for our listeners' benefit.
And we might know it, but we might think a lot of people are aware of what it is we're talking about. They don't. A lot of people have reached out to indicate that they're learning so much from the program. And
I got a couple of WhatsApp messages.
So let me just tell people, if they want to know where they can find all the resources on gender-based violence, since we were on that last, there is something called the iMatter app. This is also a very core aspect of the whole referral pathway. Everybody has a phone that can download some app of some sort. We download all kinds of things. Download the iMatter app. Click, the first page opens to a 914 panic button.
Yes.
So you can do that too. Or you can flip to the other pages. The information is broken down into segments, and you can get anything from where you should go to how does gender-based violence affect you if you are a teenager, you are an older person, all of these things. So it's categorized. It's categorized beautifully.
For ease of reference,
and we are constantly updating. In fact, we are currently updating, because based on the feedback, we want to make sure we are current.
Yeah. All right. Any other question from you, Ramona?
Nothing. I feel like all the questions, every time a question came to mind, Minister just answered it. Like she's reading my mind.
When she talks about the trainers in the communities with the churches, I do remember last week when the officers graduated, it was mentioned that they're trained as trainers. So this is information that they will be passing on to their colleagues.
But we will also be training too.
And training more.
We will be training more to complete that 2,000 figure.
Okay, so what number are you at right now?
1,400.
1,400. All right, you just finished 5, so you got
5 graduated, but the total is 14.
Yes, so you just finished, come up from 11 you just came up from 9 to 1,400, and now you've got 600 more to go.
Yes.
That's going to be one batch?
Well, we would like to do it. The challenge of the last graduation was pinning so many badges on. So,
you can call us to help.
So I did have Mr. Hicken, I did have Minister Ben with me, and we did have 2 of the UN reps, and we were pinning, And then when the formal ceremony finished, the officer says, "You're leaving already?" I said, "Don't worry." So I went back in and I stayed as long as I could to pin some more on. But there were so many of them. But for them, I think they felt good that their efforts toward this those efforts were recognized. And we were happy to provide a service. And I told them, I said, don't let me down now. This is you going out there, and this is, no, not about me. Don't let yourselves down, because you've invested time in doing all of this. So now you have to go out there and
be
we
that
know who
support.
you are and
Yeah.
where you are, and your names and your faces will be up there. So it's up to you. Deliver.
Yes. So now that we've had you and we've talked about the primarily about the women and girls in our society and the initiatives that you have for them in business, dealing with issues of training, the unconventional fields that women are working in now or getting an opportunity to be trained in now, and looking at issues of gender-based violence. We now have to get President Irfan Ali to come and talk about the Men on Mission.
Yes.
So actually, the Men on Mission, the team, we have actually been very quietly partnering on a few things, because I think it's important that the men understand their role and what the president has called on them to do. That is to transform the narrative that exists in the community. You know, sometimes men feel that they're blamed for everything. So here's the call. You're on a mission. So now change that thought that people have about you. So I think that would be a very good thing to do.
Yeah, today I had one of them in my training session, learning to master effective communication. So yeah, we had a good conversation. All right, we want to say thanks to Dr. Vindhya Prasad, the Minister of Human Services and Social Security, and we hope that you, our lovely listeners, benefited greatly from our conversation. We know that you've benefited. We're seeing you on our Facebook Live. We're getting your messages on the inbox. I don't know if I could call her name, but my new friend from the police force today. Thank you for tuning in. I sent you a heart. Thank you so much for tuning in. And shout out to you and your colleagues. Thanks for great interactions and conversations. And spread the word. Let your colleagues know the conversations that we're having and how they can benefit. And I also want to say thank you to your team, Minister, because they were so responsive when we reached out. You were so responsive when we reached out. And we hope that we can continue these sorts of conversations to inform, elevate, empower people in our community, because that's our mantra. Thank you once again.
Before we go, let's just, Minister, this is for you, from Ravina Mangal. She says, the level of thought, understanding, and dedication that Minister Prasad and her team puts into their work is always so inspiring, truly, for the people. The way the solutions are realistic and interrelated with other ministries, too, are a real testament to how things ought to be done. Kudos, great interview.
Thank you, Ravina. Appreciate it tremendously. And I just want to echo what you said. Thank you to my entire team. This is real teamwork, and it's sometimes thankless work. But I like to tell them, if nobody else thanks you, I'm saying thank you to you, because we're a small team, but we do a lot of big things. And sometimes those small things and not big things that they do matter in a very big way to people. So thank you to every one of them. And last but not least, thank you very much for having me on this evening's program. You have my commitment. I'll come as often as I can, because there's so much that's happening there. But if the listeners would like to know more, just visit our Facebook page. We're updating our website. We'll add that soon so that they can have access to all the resources and the forms and the different things that are available. But thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure being here with all of you this evening, and ahead of International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. And that Facebook page she mentioned is the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. We'll take a break and we'll come in with our next guest. They're waiting outside the Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We're going to have them taking us straight into 8 p.m. So stay tuned to the Women Empowerment Program on 99.7 FM. Good night. You are listening to the Women Empowerment Program on EduFM 99.7 FM. If you want to join our conversation, remember we're on Facebook Live, EduFM, EDYOUFM. And you can share your comments, share your thoughts, ask your questions. We're also on not just 99.7 FM, but you can also get us on 99.9 FM, 98.9 FM, 89.9 FM. And these areas where you're getting us on these different frequencies are Georgetown and Anai, Ituni, Maruka, and Port Kaituma, as well as New Amsterdam. And everywhere else. Yes. Yep. The Women Empowerment Program, Martina Johnson. And with me here in studio, my co-host Ramona Luthi. And our guests, our next set of guests, Miss Rowena Elliott, the president of the Women Chamber of Commerce, and Miss Natasha Waddle, director of the Women Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Commerce. I'm turning that around. The Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Guyana. I'm accustomed to, in a previous organization I was working with, the industry comes before the commerce. So,
welcome, ladies.
Welcome, ladies, to the Women Empowerment Program. Your first outing here.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start asking the questions. How was your day? Easy question.
Long.
Easy right? Question.
Yeah. Easy.
This Tuesday today felt like a Monday. Right?
That is so true.
It was a Monday? Like, oh man. I just, it just dawned on me that tomorrow is March. Like the year just started
already.
But it's March tomorrow.
But it's been very productive. We can say that.
Yes, it has been.
And productive is good. Busy is good. Never mind, it's a bit fast paced. I feel as we get older, the time just moves faster.
Faster. I agree.
But I'm young forever, so.
All right, forever young. Ladies, welcome and thank you for joining us. We just had the Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Dr. Vindhya Prasad, and she sort of gave so much information that we can easily segue into what we're going to be talking about here, the work of the Women's Chamber of Commerce here in Guyana. Some people.
First, what is the Women's Chamber?
I was just going to say, some people don't know what you are because you're pretty new. And then we had in the pandemic era. So now we're back outside. We outside. Tell us, or tell our listeners, you want to know what the Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry is. Who are the founders? What got it started? Tell us. Rowena?
All right. Thanks again for having us here on the program. I know it's been long overdue.
Long now, since October last year.
Yes. So Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry Guyana, that's pretty much, as the name says, we are a organization which is all about advocacy and development of women in business, women entrepreneurs. Focusing on as much as possible and how we can push that economic version of every woman through self-employment or rising in organizations, through management and leadership as well. Founders, we have two founders, Miss Kerry Graves-Andy Bart and Lindell Danzy Black. And the chamber was founded in 2019, so very young.
Very young. Still a toddler.
Yeah, so as it relates to what happened from 2019 to now, pandemic, which was in 2020, I think what happened, like later at the end of 2020 is when things started to pick up back from that 2019 launch. And from then, that was when I joined the board of the chamber. So I've been on the board since then and initially started as the treasurer.
President today.
And president today. So, the chamber it was formed as these two women on a collective body, which were the founding board as well. Women who realized that there were some issues as it relates to women in business, whether you've been having your 9 to 5 and you're trying to transition into owning a business, and there are certain things that you have to get set and get set and ready for that transition, but it's been difficult. So, they've decided that, we have these issues and going about it one by one, reaching a group of, let's just say you have the audience of a minister, the audience of a non-governmental organization or a bank or something to that extent, to propose these issues and see how we can have solutions. Going one by one isn't, it's not the best.
The impact is less,
It's
or if
really-
there's any impact at all.
Correct. So the idea of the chamber is to bring together a group of women, diverse women, different industries, similar issues.
Strength in numbers.
So the strength in numbers. So to advocate for various things as it relates to the inequalities of opportunities for women in business, and even the environment that women work in and try to grow their businesses in. So that's the idea, the general consensus of it. Also to be pushing for mentorship for younger women in business and
This
leadership
comes back
roles.
to what Minister was saying about the consortium of women
Yes.
with the various expertise and everything. Yes,
And
wonderful.
having the initiatives that cover a range of the issues that you have, so you can find the solutions in one place. So now then that brings us to what are some of the, if you have any specific industry, do you represent a specific industry of women? Some people think, oh, you're probably just for oil and gas because we now have oil and gas.
No.
I just want them to hear that that's a myth.
Definitely not. It is. And I mean, just like any chamber of commerce, you don't want to be within that realm of just a small or boxed in, so to speak. As it relates to business and women growing in their fields, it's across the board, as in all industries, that we can find women and support them in whatever way that support may come. We have women in construction. We do have women who offer services to oil and gas the oil and gas industries through the companies that they have. Natasha has one of the, as somebody had mentioned to me, one of the businesses that would have survived COVID and kind of flourished in COVID. She offered business services and specifically courier services to corporates. And that is something we didn't realize we needed until we did. So we have persons in manufacturing. The only thing I think we don't have right now is more so agro or agribusinesses. So that's one of the things we want to expand on as it relates to getting that coverage in the industries across the board for the women we represent.
So can you share some of the accomplishments of the Women Chambers and let's just shorten it. Okay. And what the impact has been like on women entrepreneurs in the country.
I think I'll go, well, one, we've realized that we are a little bit more out there. We're not there as yet, but that's one thing that I want to say, that we've achieved a little bit more awareness, and the membership has been growing. So I'll say for sure that's one thing. We're over 100 members. I dare say over 120, and we've successfully, through the hard work of the founders, we've successfully managed to get a project on board, which is the We3A project, funded by a couple of IDB from IDB here, and also the Thunderbird School of Global Management. Also, We Connect. So that's one of the major things that we've been focusing on, because it deals with capacity building for women entrepreneurs. Whether it's somebody who's been in business for a little while, 2-3 years, you're trying to get your foot in, especially out of this COVID season, or somebody who has an idea. They're sitting there in a 9-to-5, but they do have an idea. They just don't know where to go, how to start. So that has started, and one of those, we're about to wrap up the first cohort, I would say, and that's going to be a major, on the list of major achievements for us, to get it started last August, get it off the ground after some work, and be wrapping up that first cohort to have them graduate with their certificates from those international bodies. I must say this is our third year for some of our events, our signature events. So far, we have 2, which is our Founders Dinner, which is there for a Founders Dinner award ceremony where we recognize some of our members, under some awards. And we welcome the new board, say thank you to the old board. And we do have, as you'll hear about a little later on, which is our Guyana Women and Girls Summit, which is a signature event as well of the Chamber. We're trying to make that a big national one. That's the aim. So to launch those bits and pieces, I think those are little successes as we come along.
But I actually want you to talk about the Women's and Girls Summit now, so that we get an opportunity to go into detail about what it is, what is happening, who can benefit, how you can benefit, and when is it going to happen. So let's talk about it. The Women in Girls, I'm saying Women in Girls. So the Women and Girls Initiative. Let us hear. What are you doing? What are we going to benefit from this?
So Natasha, take it away.
I see
She's our events director.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So, what comes to mind when you think about girl? I got some tea.
So
your
much.
ears are now perked up. You're ready. Attention's geared at hearing what is coming next. Mostly in a negative connotation. What we're trying to do right now is to use that same energy to get everyone's attention, women, girls, boys, men. Get your attention, because the tea that we're going to be sipping and spilling at the Women and Girls Summit on March 9th, it's going to be all about technology, empowerment, and advocacy, and how we can use them to foster the development of women and girls in Guyana. We're going to be using the opportunity to highlight some of the trailblazers within those industries as well. Prior to GWAGs, you can be follow us on social media. You will be seeing some of the amazing women who are making strides in technology, advocacy, empowerment. You can see their photos. You can get an idea as to what it is that they do. And just, if you didn't know they existed, now you know. Employ them, work with them, support their businesses, because we do have women right here who are doing miraculous things. So it is on March 9th at the Guyana Marriott Hotel from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. So it's an all-day event, or most of the day event.
I missed that. Was I invited?
Well,
you know, right?
You're on a special invitee list.
I don't think Post comes to this area on Tuesday.
Oh my God.
But on the day, you can come, our guests can come expecting to leave with lots and lots of information in terms of the topics that we're going to be choosing. We want you to come and also support, because the Women Chamber of Commerce, our members, will be on display in full view for you to see some of the women there, what are the services that they offer, how you can get into business with them. We're going to have girls there as well who we are hoping will be inspired by these miraculous men and women in the room. So when they go back to school, when they go back to their jobs, wherever they are, we now have persons who have this little more motivation to work towards becoming trailblazers in their own rights, right? We have amazing speakers. We have our minister who just left. She will be gracing us with her presence.
We do have a couple of governmental persons who are going to talk about the different topics from a government perspective, because you want to be able to show what's there that persons can take advantage of. And of course, we have to hear from our private sector, persons who will let us know from that end of the spectrum what it's like to work with women, to encourage them, to see when they succeed, and how to help and foster that success, whether they're managers, CEOs, so we have a panel that's going to should be really good. We have some good panelists. We're going to let you know of that as the time goes by. We're going to do some social media posts on who our speakers are. Yes. And of course, we have a really good relationship with the diplomatic community. So we're going to have some diplomats doing some presentations and even on panels as well. So I think the entire program of itself, it's going to be a good one, just from all aspects of, I guess, society and the people who make decisions and influence decisions. Yes. We're going to be featuring, as well as a speaker, the reigning Miss Guyana World, Andrea King. I think she recently launched her project, her NGO project Flow. So she's going to be there. And I know a lot of people look up to beauty queens, but she's just not just a beauty queen. She's also one with a purpose that I really find financial literacy is so important. Just a quick thing. I had to do a financial literacy when I was volunteering on the AmCham with the American corner of the library. They were launching this, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I decided I'll join the team to build a curriculum for financial literacy for kids, younger ones. And I'm like, oh my God. One, respect all the teachers out there that have to sit and create these things like curriculum. And for kids, and you have to make it entertaining, and you have to make sure that, it's going to grab their attention. And then two, why didn't I have this? You know,
Yes.
from growing up. And that's one of the reasons why we want to include young girls, the school age girls, and that's one of the age groups that we're trying to target with the event, so that you realize that it's not until you get to an adult like us that you start, you know, with the financial independence, the literacy, the know-how, just to have the knowledge. So there'll be a good mix, I guess, I would like to say, of people on the program.
So
And like
y'all
Natasha
asking me
said-
what's the cost? What's the cost for the event?
The
I could
cost
tell you, you
is
know.
FRE. It is free.
So it's
And we
free because I
actually-
got my ticket. Thank
Yes.
you for your order. You're going to the Guyana Women and Girls Summit 2023. One
Great.
ticket sent to Martina.Johnson at imcguyana.com.
Watch me go and look for it now. Hold on.
Date Thursday, March 9th, 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. An order number, long number. So much people applying.
So we just
This number big, you know.
we just hit
open registration
open
about 30
registration
minutes ago
before
for
coming here.
persons
Wow.
to go ahead and register to
It's-
secure their seats, because it is limited seating. So you want
So
to
when
go
you say
ahead.
limited, 300 people, 50 people, 100 people,
Limited meaning when you go on the link and you can't register it.
it done. Okay, so it says you've got tickets. Find them in the app. Hurry, Ramona, hurry. I only ordered 2.
Yes.
Ashley,
So
you
what
better
we
go
would
register.
advise, what we would advise you all to do, come prepared to learn. Bring your notepads. We're gonna have tea on this. Of course, we can't sip the tea without tea there. We do have amazing sponsors who are gonna be on board. We have
We have the brand that the Cinco does, which is
Cinco.
Bigelow,
Yes.
I believe
Okay.
is the name,
Yeah,
if
so
I'm pronouncing
the
it
Cinco is
right.
gonna
So
be
Sarah is, she graciously reached out. She saw that, said the tea, and she's like, you know, how can we come on board?
Yes.
So we're gonna, you know, we have people supporting us, and that's what we're looking forward to, because the idea is the support is needed for our members, for the public, to benefit as much as they can from what we do. And Natasha mentioned there's going to be an exhibition with our members. You know, they have a chance to also, one of the major parts of the event, of everything that you do, is networking and connecting, yeah? So that's why we have a mix of, you know, people on the panel, on the presentations. That's why we have a mix of invitees, and that's why it's out there in the public, so that there's a mix of people that can be there, just make a connection. You never know when you will find somebody to either go into business with, do a project with, you know, bid for something with, collaborate in any way. So that's
You've
the
got
idea.
girls presenting too? Girls in business?
Well, we do have STEM Guyana there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. We reached out to them and asked them to be a major part of the, you know, just also because the UN theme, the UN Women theme, has to do with technology and innovation for gender equality. And the IWD team is Embrace Equity. So we try to do a merge of
IWD is International Women's Day coming up
Correct.
next Tuesday. No,
that.
next Wednesday.
Yeah.
The 8th is Wednesday. Pagua is the 7th.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's we're doing a merge of that, and so we wanted to include the young girls from the STEM part of it. So they're also going to be on display. They're
We
gonna be
had
doing
some
their
of the
work.
STEM girls on our program.
Saw that on your page.
Just recently, yes, and yes, shout out to the STEM team for doing so much amazing work in our communities. Now, let's talk about the benefits of being a member of the Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
And how can somebody else get involved?
All right.
I know. Yes.
So
some of the
I'd say
benefits.
in terms of benefits, there are many benefits to joining an organized group of persons who are specifically aiming to achieve one goal, you know. So one of those things with the chamber would be access to a large network of persons. For example, the exhibition part of this event is open to members only. And while you might be there to talk to persons and have them know of what you do and whatnot, the idea of showcasing, that's only open to members.
That is
So-
on the
Right on the
upcoming
day of the event of the GUAG.
sipping your tea.
Yes, there's a small exhibition, but just members. So there's certain things that our members will be first, you know, because the idea of existing is for them. There's ways that you can benefit from bringing your collective issues, where the chamber can now advocate and lobby for certain things, whether because as a chamber, we are also a part of the Private Sector Commission. So we're sectoral members. And as that body alone, they're large and they're very influential as it relates to things affecting private sector. And with that, we can then help our own members by taking certain things to them to say, hey, this is also something that's affecting our members. And then as a larger group, you get that support from them where we push forward with issues or suggestions, hopefully to the policymakers, exposures to trade missions. Everybody doesn't have that exposure. But when you become a member of the chamber, you have that. Recently, there was a trade mission from the U.S., I think the largest one last year. And we were able to have our members there because they reached out to us and said, hey, we have a table here ready for you and your members. And, those are some of the things. You build, you connect, you network. We have workshops, leadership programs. We have a connection, an MOU with Sherry Blair Foundation for a mentee mentorship program where our members are also exposed to international mentors. Local mentors, of course, we have really great people here, but then sometimes you may have outgrown the market locally. You might need that little international bit of how do I go now further? Mm-hmm. Who can I talk to? Who can coach me through these waters? So that program also, we've had about 6 of our members come through that program. With the Sherry Blair Foundation. So there are different things that we intend to do for the rest, at least coming years, and things we're putting in place, that can filter on as we progress into growing this chamber.
So the other part of the question is, if I want to join, how do I join?
Mm-hmm.
Natasha?
Listen carefully.
I know I've joined already. I'm a member.
She is, yes. Martina is.
So to join, you can go to our website, wcciguyana.com.
WCCI
Guyana. No.
It's WCCI Guyana. Sorry.
WCCI Guyana.
You go ahead, you go to membership, and you fill out the form there. We will then get your lovely application with all of your information, and our membership team will communicate with you thereafter to get you onboarded to become a member of the Women's Chamber. The process, of course, like any other organization, it takes there's time and there's a system that has to be followed. But girl, once you're out there and you want to be a member of the chamber, you want to be a part of a bigger community where we have that voice to speak on your behalf. You can join the chamber. There are lots of benefits, and also there's lots of a space for you to grow as a person. Even if you're not a part of any other group, you're able to learn, you're able to grow. Your membership will definitely repay your business, because now as a chamber we try to use businesses within the chamber. So for instance, we need radio program, we need advertising. Martina will come to mind first. Who do we go to for that? We need to do construction. We'll go to Kathy because she's construction. You need to go to or Josephine. So this is how it works.
A
within
pool of
the chamber,
resources.
we come to you
we
first.
Network, and
if we don't have that business within the chamber, then we will go outside.
Then you go out
and go look. So you have customers right there in the chamber. You build your clientele, and then there's recommendation. As small and growing businesses, we know the power of word of mouth. So we have over 100 persons who will now advocate for your business. So that's the intention. That is how we work at the chamber. So be a part of the conversation as well when things are bothering you. You might be at home chatting with your spouse, your friend, but how far will that conversation go, and what results will you get
to grow your business?
To grow your business. But you come to the chamber, you have a louder, stronger collective voice through us, through the other chambers and parties that we're a part of, and now you can actually get some sort of result.
Because those people would have already walked the road that you're now on.
Correct.
And they can give you solutions. So the thing that seemed like an obstacle to you before, it was just a little bump in the road.
Yeah.
It was never an obstacle. You could have always,
Correct.
gotten over it.
Correct.
So you just talk to the right people.
There is that. So you go to our website, you fill out the application form, and from there, our membership community will be in contact with you to get you onboarded, and then you join the chamber, and at least one time a year you get to dress up and come to our gala.
Yeah.
So from the application process, are there criteria that are stipulated there to basically filter out? Not just everybody go and sign up. What are those special criteria?
So the special criteria currently on the page is for your business registration, your NIS, your TIN.
You must
the name
have
of
a
your
registered
Correct.
business.
It is a business.
Yeah.
Now, if you're from a company and you're interested, this is where negotiation comes into play. Go to your boss and say, hey, I believe these are the benefits of the Women's Chamber of Commerce, and I think we need to be a part of it. So you go ahead, you're able to sell the chamber to your company. They then join the chamber, and they can appoint you as their representative.
Mm-hmm.
So
And there's a fee structure as well that could determine let me be careful with the words that I use. That will determine the level of participation or
Correct.
access.
Level of
participation,
meaning representatives.
Like
you
how
have the
much
option of one
voting power.
correct.
And
You
that
have the
sort
option of
thing.
one, which is one individual, one person, and then there are also associate members, strategic members, and then there's about. Forgive me, offhand, I cannot remember the rest. But we do have a few where you have 3 members, which will be associate, which means 3 persons from your organizations will be representatives. And of course, you have those 3 votes when it's time to vote. The next one would be 5 members, and I think we go up to about 7 members. So that's for the big, the big corporations. But you do have that structure where you can have 1 representative, 3, 5, and onwards.
So the small companies, there's a door for you. It's not like
there
okay,
is definitely a door
7
for you.
members and you got to pay $1 million. No, you don't have to pay $1 million.
So I think for the individual, it might be necessary to mention it's just a small annual fee of just $20,000 for one business to join the chamber currently.
So that's just like $1,500 a month, $1,600 a month if you want to put it that way.
And you get to be a part of all of the activities. You get all of the access, the information, and so forth. And you're entitled to your 1 vote because you're the one person.
Is that a women's chamber pin?
No, it's actually a rotary pin.
Because I'm seeing it, but the mic is sort of blocking it. And I'm like, I didn't know there's a pin.
Yeah, that she didn't get one.
I didn't know there's a pin. I didn't get a pin.
I hope that when there is a pin, you will be purchasing very soon.
Yes. Just set it up and be ready.
You don't have to tell her. Just make sure she sees it on you.
And that's it.
Be like, I need a pin.
No problem. Yes, we will. We're working
I'm proud to
towards
identify.
that.
You see how we identify in here?
Yes.
Women
empowerment.
Women empowerment. Yes. All right. So, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges that women entrepreneurs in Guyana face, and how is the chamber working to help address those challenges?
So I'll go first on that one, and then I know for sure Natasha can chime in. But one of the things that I think we faced is maybe not being taken as seriously, and I can't say it's all the outside fault. Sometimes we are scared to take a risk, and so I think and we are scared to put ourselves out there. Simple as doing a little bit of networking. We just need to grow a little bit. You're going to find women who are ready to go. But then the majority, it's like, I don't know how to move. I don't know. But then, you have persons there who are ready to like push you. So I think one thing, and I want persons to understand that there's so many, I don't know, Juanita had a program. And I don't know if anybody had, caught any of those. And she had a couple of women on with businesses, and a lot of things that they said, everybody had their own different things that they said, but 2 or 3 of them that I remember saying is that I wish I took the risk sooner. So, and they're all thriving in the businesses now, and so that's one of the things that for me, I realized in being in the realm and being around these women who I know they have a product or a service that they can sell, they have the capability to grow that and all of that, but I think it's just that little bit of push or the risk factor. So that part of it, and you can only get over that by being out there, taking advantage of the programs, taking advantage of the community, taking advantage of the opportunities to network, to be in a crowd and walk up to somebody that that's the person from that business. I'm going to go and introduce myself, and that's the way you start, just by slowly getting out there and doing that bit of connecting with people. That will try it, and I think that will help a lot as it relates to that.
I think a lot of people realize the value of networking. And connecting, as you
and
said.
connecting, and it's really important, and will help your confidence as it relates to maneuvering that crowd. A lot of times and it happened to me at the beginning. I'm there standing in a room with a whole bunch of like big CEOs and presidents of corporations and diplomats, and I'm like, oh, what girl are you doing here? You know, and then you realize you just
belong.
you earn the place here.
Yes.
I have people that voted for me to be here, so I have to make that count for them. And I learned and I made it work. So far, we've been building connections with people, international bodies, the governmental agencies, the other private sector service organizations, and it's been good because it's all for the benefit of the women in business.
Yeah, and I think what is important there too is that we understand that networking, showing up, is not enough. You've got to connect. Meaning, if I go with Rowena, I don't want to talk to Rowena at the event. I want to talk to that guy over there that I don't know, or that girl over there that I don't know, or that woman over there that I do not know. Those are the persons you need to be connecting with. That is the only way that networking is actually valuable to you. Speaking to your friend who you know.
That you show up with.
Catching up with the people you haven't seen in a long time, unless they're actually adding some sort of value to your brand or your business, makes no sense if you're going to a networking event. It is for you to connect with the persons who don't know who you are, who need to know what service you offer and how they can benefit from you. Most
Build
times
your
what
brand.
we noticed, and personally I do it because I'm mostly an introvert, I'm going to go and I'm going to find the person I'm comfortable with. But that's not the purpose of me spending money to come to this event. The purpose of me being there is to bring money back to my business.
Yeah.
How do I do that? If I speak to only the persons who already know my business exists, they already say, Tasha, we love you so much. We love how you like Rowena knows about my courier services. She's gonna use me anyway. I don't need to be speaking to Rowena.
That's true.
I need to go speak to the person who doesn't know that I exist.
Ashwini.
Right? So that is the only way that is important. And that it works and that it adds value and that it actually turns out into, let's be honest, at the end of the day, we started a business to turn these things into cash. The only way that networking activity turns into cash is when you go build up your self-esteem. Whether you're introvert or not in business, you have to be extroverted. Even if you don't like speaking to people in business, you've got to get out there.
It's good that you mentioned that, because today when I was doing the training, one of the persons said, and I have to reshape the thinking, one of the persons said that if they go to an event, they don't really talk to officials because they know them. I said, but the idea of you going to the event is not that you know them, is that you leave with them knowing you.
Correct.
Because if they don't know you, they're not going to call you for the job. So you go and make yourself known.
Yep.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Positively.
Positive way.
And it's
Positively.
it's also coming from a place of experience. The first time I went, actually the first year in business for me, I went to a lot of events. I got a lot of pictures. Did I make any connections? No, because I went into the room and I sat there and I'm like, I don't like talking to people. I'm just going to sit here. I showed up. That's enough. And then you look at
that's relatable.
You look at your revenue at the end of the year and you're like, but my business didn't get out there. Like, people know Express, but it didn't actually turn into cash, right?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? Then I realized that, like, it was at my first Women's Chamber Gala. I sat there at the table. I don't know who I was sitting next to this day because I spoke to nobody.
She made me feel like I'm like a super extrovert because I talk to everybody at my
When I go
first
to with Martina, she talks to everybody, and I'm sitting there
That's
like,
good.
Right? At my next event, I was all around the room speaking to everybody. The minute you just we eyes and even got connected forward.
You just got
on
past.
glance, and I'm coming across to you. I'm always equipped with my business cards, or I have the digital one. We're gonna have a conversation. I'm gonna ensure that you know who I am before I leave the room.
Like Saturday night when we went out, I left with like everybody's phone number. Actually, before we left the event, I had already WhatsApp everybody.
Right. Yeah, so it is important
a
to
PowerPoint
connect.
of my business services.
Here's how this worked. They reached out to me because I did the same thing. I went, and while I did talk, I didn't like make that extra leap, but they asked for my contact information and they reached out. So
You made an impression.
So, but as it goes back to some of the challenges that women in business are currently facing, I can speak more so for small businesses. What I think one of the major things, and this is not affecting women in business only, but it's affecting us across the scale, especially for those younger business persons, both male and female, access to finance. It is a topic that we speak about all the time. I think every chamber, every organization has had this topic, and we speak about how we can prepare prepare ourselves to get the finance. But the reality is some of the systems way beyond us needs to be changed. So that is one of the things that the chamber now can work towards, because it needs a great consortium of persons who will now advocate towards the changing of certain policies so that access to finance becomes easier for not the persons who have already, but the persons who are trying to get, to build a business, to get funding, because I have a great idea. My business plan, feasibility study, everything is there.
But I need money, and the bank is telling me I can't get
Correct.
it.
The bank is collateralized. Now, if I don't have a transport, a guarantor, or I don't have any sort of real estate to give to the bank, regardless of how fancy my business plan is, how much projected profit my business is going to make in another year or 5 years, the bank's system cannot allow for me to get money. I cannot as my business unless I can leave something substantial. And for certain business plans, a car is not going to do it, honey.
No.
They need a land. They need a house. Or they need a guarantor who is going to sign over a house or a land same way for you to get that loan. If you cannot have access to that, you cannot start your business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if you have an existing business, you don't, in a year or two, let's be realistic, somebody with a micro or small business cannot earn enough to buy a house in a year. But they need money to grow their business in a year.
Yep.
The bank doesn't want to see your bank records to say we're going to grant you a $5 million loan so that you can buy the resources to make more money. They still want a land or a house.
They still want collateral. Well, on that note, we're going to give you some collateral. Yes, it's 8 o'clock here in the studio on the Women Empowerment Program. Listen, I don't know what's happening.
We're running out of time. 2 hours is not enough anymore.
We just get the 2 hours. Anyways, Women Empowerment Program, thank you for staying tuned with us. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to ask you to continue this conversation because we want to have a whole program on access to financing.
Yes.
We don't want to give you 5 minutes or 2 minutes. We want to give you a whole hour to talk about where you can get it, how you can get it, how much you can get, and what you need to do to get there. So as we wrap up top of the hour, 8 o'clock tonight, we thank all our guests that we've had tonight. We've got Rowena Elliott and Miss Natasha Waddle from the Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And before that, we had the Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Dr. Vindhya Prasad. We thank you so much for sharing your time and information, particularly at this time of the day. And we thank our new DJ, Ashwini Saran, for stepping up and joining the Women Empowerment Program. Good night here from EduFM on Battery Road.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.